right. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Welcome to our second session of Ignite Spark. We're happy to have you guys all here. I will be helping just like moderate and let people into the Zoom room while Colleen and Sam of the Colleen Miklus team teach you guys today. Our second session is on negotiating offers. This is one of our most requested classes, most important subject to perfect and better understand for your clients. And there is nobody better to be instructing besides these two. Again, that is Sam Cregar and Colleen Miklus. I will put their contact information in the chat box for you guys so that you have that after the session. And without further ado, I am going to have them take it away.
All right. So yeah, I think
I'd
say, can everyone hear us?
Good afternoon, everybody.
Yep.
All right.
All right, we're gonna have some fun today. Okay, get your notes. Hope you have a pad of paper. If you guys were here yesterday for Eric's, he took some pretty amazing notes. Him and Mike led a great session. So I would like you to do the same. If you don't have an Ignite folder, I would suggest getting one with these 6 classes so you can gather it all together, hole punch it, put it in a binder, and reference it whenever you need it, versus having all these pages everywhere. We're going to teach you, I'm sure a lot of you know how to negotiate, but we'll teach you again and hopeful to be helpful in any questions you may have at the end, like Julia said, with regards to any deals or problems that you may encounter along the way.
Cool. All right. So I'm going to go over just a quick outline of what we're going to be covering, and then we'll jump right into it. So first thing we're going to talk about is just kind of the basics of negotiation, the path where, the different paths that you can take with different types of negotiation and different types or the different steps that you're at. We're going to be tying in the how do we say it quickly? The WI4C2T. Yeah, anyway, that one. We're going to be tying that in. Then KW has broken it down to the 3 P's of negotiation. So prepare, present, and position. We'll go into all 3. And then we'll kind of wrap up and see if anyone has any questions or ahas. So we'll kind of start off with just basic. Does anyone have, when they think of negotiation, what do they think of? Or a definition that they like of negotiation, as general purpose, not even necessarily in real estate.
No judging, just unmute yourself and participate. We like participation. What's anyone's definition of negotiating?
I mean, I like what Keller Williams shared, win-win, win-win transaction for everybody on each side.
Yep. Perfect. Anyone else?
Colleen, when 2 parties come to a mutual agreement.
Correct.
Yeah,
yep.
And that's the ultimate, goal is to everyone come to a mutual agreement at the end. Perfect. All right. So, what challenges does sorry, there we go. All right, so as you can see, we're not necessarily going in the order for the Ignite there's a lot of other steps for Ignite that we could be doing, and we're jumping right into the negotiating offer. Yesterday was the lead generating. So you can kind of see where we're at in the starting of the real estate expert career, as you see all the way to the left, and finishing up with a transaction. So we're close to the end of where we all want to be multiple times a month, and that's negotiating an offer. What challenges does everyone encounter when they're thinking of negotiating, or does anyone have any not nice gut instincts, or things that you don't look forward to when you know that you're going to be negotiating, whether it's a price, an ROC, anything like that?
Okay. All right, I'll give one. I don't like sending over the ROC because I don't know. I'm afraid the other agent's going to get upset with me and their seller's going to say no. That's my worst negotiating fear. Anyone else? All right, I'll give a second one. How about the house is $100,000? Can we get that thing off? By chance?
No.
Okay. And my buyer wants to offer 80 and considered a lowball offer when it's, let's say, 40 days on the market.
Yeah, people are.
So those are examples in my world. I'm not sure if you share the same.
Unreasonable request.
Oh,
sorry, we just realized there are people in the chat.
We're in the chat. We got the chat.
Yeah, so Becca said when her client has unreasonable requests that we're negotiating. And actually, Colleen, that's we didn't plan this, but that is also my biggest fear. Probably, honestly, you've heard me say this a million times, it's my least favorite part of real estate is the ROC. And I always get nervous that I'm working with this buyer for months and we're going to send this over and they're being unreasonable. They want the moon and there's nothing really, you know, I've tried to convince them, and the last thing in the world I want to do is go, you know, so the deal to fall apart and then we have to start looking again. So that's absolutely every single time I submit an ROC, probably my least, you know, what's going through my head. So,
yeah. So we're going to talk about those challenges today and how we handle that.
Cool. All right, so as we go through, so like I said, today we're going to cover what is a negotiation and the 3 P's in the negotiation, which as you see, or actually they're not there, sorry, prepare, present, and position. So we'll go through step by step what the ideal agent is doing at those steps, what questions they're asking. So by the end of the day, the goal is that you will be able to explain kind of negotiating offers. So you'll have a better understanding of what that is. You'll be able to use the 3 Ps to help you make a better offer and be a better negotiator. And then you'll be able to recall and practice the key skills in negotiation, because there are skills that even if we're not practicing with a live other agent, that we can still be doing on a day-to-day basis. So to start thinking about what you'll learn today, let's consider what questions we might have or something that we would like to learn about. So I promise this is the last time I'm going to ask for participation in this next 2-minute period. But does anyone have any, you know, really they're at this class because they really would like to learn X, or this is something they want to dive into more in terms of negotiation, or, you know, anything to do with that? Does anyone have any big goals that they want to share coming into it?
This is Tracy Walker. I would like to learn more about negotiating deals, because I find myself working for the opposite side a lot of times when it comes to the negotiation. It's like I'm giving in. The listing agent will say, oh, well, they're not going to take less than 160. So I'm over here trying to bargain and plead with my buyer to say, well, let's just do it, you know. So instead of actually trying to come to a common ground with the listing agent.
For sure.
That's a common one.
Yeah, you hate the feeling when you're on the phone with your buyer and you're like, okay, I know I'm working for you, but we need to put ourselves in the other position, the other party's shoes. Anyone else have anything they want to share before we jump in? Cool.
Tracy,
right.
we hope this is helpful. As every deal, I've been doing this 18 years and every single deal till this day is so different. But if we can help you sharpen the saw a little bit, as Mike said this morning, there's our 5 jobs as a realtor. Number 1, to lead generate, which we talked about yesterday. 2, lead follow-up. 3, make appointments. And now the 4th one is negotiating offers. So this is where we're hopefully going to help you guys do that. With regards to winning the offers and making it a win-win for everyone and closing them.
We just got someone in the group says, in this shifting market, how to negotiate the seller helping with closing costs still to make the offer favorable.
We're going to talk about
that. Is kind of the reason that both of us are in here is both of us are teaching is we're going to be talking about kind of before shift, after shift, things that we used to do, things that we're doing now after. Perfect. So absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Next. All right, Paul, I see you on here in my old office. Can you read this slide?
Mute. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, it says, negotiating is not something to be avoided or feared. It's an everyday part of life. That's from Lee Steinberg, sports agent and author.
Perfect. Thank you, Paul. The office is looking great on you. All right, guys, think about this. You have been negotiating since you've been a little kid. Your mom told you to clean your room. You said no. You wanted $10 when you really asked, you asked your dad for 20 and then he really gave you 10. eat your vegetables. I really don't want to eat it. You literally have been negotiating all your life and you probably didn't even know about it since you've been a little kid. Okay. So what limiting beliefs in this real estate career, now we just continue to negotiate, but just on a higher level, what limiting beliefs do you have about negotiation? Anyone? Okay, go ahead. Paul, do you have something to say?
I was going to say, I think the knee-jerk response is in negotiating, someone's going to win and someone's going to lose. And we talk all the time, how do we reframe negotiating so that we make both parties winners? Correct.
It has to be a win-win. And that's also a mindset that someone wins and loses. We want, it's a mutually shared, agreed upon agreement. Okay. I will, the common one, I will say one of my limiting beliefs is when someone says, it's my final and best offer, Colleen. I'm the listing agent. It's their final and best offer. And if my client doesn't take it, I feel like my client's going to get upset if they don't take it. How many times have we heard final and best, right? Yeah. And after 24 hours, someone moves. Okay. That's a limiting belief because I know after all these years, someone is going to get off of that. Okay. Another one that I have a limiting belief is when someone puts a deadline or a time frame on an offer, like, back in the past 2 years in the multiple offers, all offers are due or, all offers are due Monday at 6. Well, if your client is working till 6, I would call the listing agent and say, could you give us till 7 or give us till 8? There's nothing wrong with picking up the phone, okay, and asking them. Or if you're the listing agent and you've received an offer and you have no multiple offers, but the offer states, as some of the contracts you see as you take more listings, that it says that this offer expires at midnight on, January 6th. Okay, well, I'm sorry, my sellers are out of town and they'll respond. I don't really like to be told what to do with regards to having a time set. But if you, again, we'll get into the details about having that relationship with the other realtor. But if you set those expectations up front, there should be no barrier and no adversarial rebuttal back and forth with regards to the offers. Okay, but those are limiting beliefs that I had as a realtor and I've overcome them because we need, again, sellers want to sell the house, buyers want to buy the house. How can we get that common ground? Okay. All right.
Yeah, and mine definitely is, we already talked about, it's just like I said, the kind of actually what the social, not knowing what the options are that you might have, and when it is okay, what is okay and what isn't okay. That's definitely, that's kind of the whole point almost is, we don't know what the other side is going to accept or not accept and what's going to be their breaking point to walk away. And I think that is definitely my biggest limiting fear, is thinking that offer point to walk away is much closer in the view than it really is.
So social team, define a little bit more about options. Are you talking about price point? You talking about terms? Like what is okay and what isn't? I need more specifications.
Hi, this is Kim. Hi there. I think for me, this has changed. Like as a new agent 2 years ago, I didn't know what I could do and couldn't do. What can I offer? I didn't even think of ideas to offer. Sure. Now I'm more comfortable and I've worked through, enough transactions that I've seen things. But what I have learned is that before you put a rebuttal or another offer back, pick up the phone, talk it through, and just find out, here's what my buyer's thinking, what's going to work, what's not going to work for the seller on that, so that you figure it out and get the language right the first time rather than take a risk of ticking someone off by sending it over in writing,
Sure. I appreciate that, Kim. Thank you for sharing. You're also with a very experienced team that Shoshana has written many creative offers. And a lot of that comes with experience, but if you are challenged, there are ways to work through that, whether it be closing costs, which we'll get into more examples. It's the only way you guys are going to learn. But same thing, Heidi and Becca, with your questions, the past 2 years, yes, you worry about someone walking away. And now we're back getting more to a balanced market where you can work with the other agent, and houses, you actually can negotiate a purchase price and it's not going to sell at list price or higher. And you can negotiate an ROC because If you are a seasoned agent, you've set those expectations up that when that removal of contingency comes over, no house is perfect, even new construction. And we're going to address these things one at a time. Okay, but we'll get into more detail on that.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so what is a negotiation? I mean, the probably one of the most important parts of a real estate agent's job. We do it, I mean, from step one of the purchase of a home to, honestly, I've negotiated all the way to the end when you're not supposed to be. You know, things come up last minute and you end up doing it the whole time. So it's one of those things that we all realize that if you like it or if you don't like it, it doesn't matter, because it's basically what we do all day long. So in Ignite, and you've learned through NAR statistics that a real estate agent's ability to negotiate is one of the top reasons that a buyer or seller is going to pick them for a job. So when you think of negotiation, I guess we kind of talked about this, you know, what do we think of? Has anything prompted in anyone's head to think of other, you know, things that we've negotiated or anything like that, or the things that you think of when we think of negotiation?
Okay, a lot of talk about negotiation and the definition. And as at Keller Williams, we do have our belief system of the WI4C2Cs. Sorry. Which one of these guys do you feel is the number one that relates to negotiating the most? And I think, Art, you just said it before.
Right, win-win.
Win-win,
Yes.
right, the number one, right? Win-win or no deal. And as a Keller Williams agent, you're always working to find a win-win solution for all the parties, okay? Being kind, fair, professional, you have the best chance for reaching an agreement that is best for your clients versus being the opposite. Finding common ground that you and your clients and the co-broke and what their clients want is obviously the goal. Never forget that obviously we're building these relationships with all the parties from the beginning. And this all goes back from the beginning, whether you're the listing agent and that buying agent calls you to say an offer's coming in and your buyers are interested and they have questions, or if you represent the buyer and you're picking the phone up and calling the listing agent and saying that, hey, my buyer has these questions, or if all questions have been answered, they're going to be moving forward in writing an offer. We're making sure that this is a win-win or no deal. We have integrity in all the things as we represent our brokerage here. Communication is key. Seek first to understand. And then trust starts with all honesty. We have to be honest and we have to be fair in both parties. You can't have a seller that says, oh, my leak roofed and I don't want to disclose it. Okay, like it has to be, as a listing agent, anything the seller tells you, it's got to go on those disclosures. And when you know it, everyone else has to know it. Okay, same with the buyer. With regards to maybe their financing or anything financial that needs to stay confidential, but at least we're honest with what we can negotiate and relate back to the other agent. You must keep your emotions under control at all times. Never be defensive. Your clients, my famous saying, I know Sam gets sick of hearing it, but your clients will read and feed off of your emotions. If the minute you hang up, that listing agent declines your offer and the seller rejects it, I should say it's not the listing agent. Again, this is about our clients. The seller rejects your offer and you get upset and you don't have really nice things to say about the other agent. If you relay that back to your client, then everything just blows up and it just doesn't go well, okay? It just maybe wasn't the house for them or whatever the case may be, but keep your emotions intact, okay? Again, they will read off of you. If you are in control, which you are, which we are as agents, we are in control of this transaction. If you feel you're upset and you need to wait till the morning, just let your clients know that, hey, I haven't heard back and we'll follow up in the morning. You wake up with a clear mind and attack the day, and you have maybe a better response that you thought of. But, unfortunately, it didn't work out and they rejected your offer. Your personal opinion of other realtors is null and void to the transaction. This is about your clients, not about you. Okay. And then they just suggest that put yourself in the other client's shoes. Their buyer may be losing out on a dream home. So your and you're setting up the whole scenario and experience for your buyers. This is supposed to be fun. We're supposed to be shopping and buy a house. Okay. And so present, it's exciting. And even if it's the shittiest house on the corner, it's going to go okay. You just have to be happy for them and guide them through, and knowing that you're going to do your best to get them the house. Okay. All right. But it's not that simple.
I was gonna say, however, it's not that simple. So, as I think everyone on this call has had at least one transaction, once your offer is accepted, I usually tell my clients, like, okay, this is great. Now the real work starts. You are going to get a billion papers to have to sign and do from the title company and from the bank. Now we have to then, go into all the rest of the negotiation. So, if an offer is rejected or countered, we will negotiate with the other side to reach a win-win argument for everyone. It's important to note that not every transaction is unique. So negotiation might not be the only, or might not always happen at the start. As I talked about at the beginning, there are deals where you're going to be negotiating at the very end, even when you shouldn't be. This summer, actually twice this summer, somehow, sellers took washer and dryers at the final walkthrough, and we were negotiating up until the hour that they closed. We shouldn't have been doing that for many reasons, but it can happen at the start all the way to the end. And remember, to get to that point, you've been lead generating, and you've gotten into a relationship with the lead through follow-up to get an appointment and a signed agreement. Then you went on your buyer and got them qualified and showed them homes. Or as a listing agent, you've helped your client make choices to best showcase their home in the market. To get to that point in the transaction, there's been a lot of time, energy, and effort invested. You wouldn't want to lose the deal because the negotiation skills weren't up to par. So today we'll be focusing on establishing your negotiating skills so that you can close with confidence and create a win-win deal for all people involved. So this is where we're going to kind of go into two different examples of the kind of before shift negotiating and after a shift negotiating.
All right, I'm going to go, let's see what we got here. Yeah, love that, Becca. It's so true. She has said that remind clients that once we are under contract, we are all on the same team. The shared goal is getting to a successful closing. I love that. Thank you.
And it's important to keep your as an agent, keep in mind that this isn't the other agent's, response. This isn't the other agent's decision. We can put in our heads all we want that, they're the ones, pushing their client to say no. It's not them. So we can't be taking out our frustrations with the deal on the other agent, because honestly, the only thing that's going to happen is then they're going to push back harder, and then you're going to push, and it's only going to get worse. So keeping yourself, for me, level-headed and reminding myself that, this isn't the other agent telling me this is their sellers. And this isn't me. This is my client. I shouldn't be the one getting more emotional than them.
Mm-hmm. Watch your pronouns, guys. My house, I don't let my kids say he or she, because I say, who is she? They have a name. Okay. So you don't say we. Okay. It's not you and the buyer. It's the buyer. The buyer's response is this. It's not we, me and the seller. It's the listing agent, or excuse me, the sellers. Mm-hmm. So watch your pronouns. Okay. Don't use we. You're not buying the house. Well, if you'd like to buy the house with your buyer, that's up to you. But it is about the buyer and the seller. The transaction is, and Andrew Ginter, our broker, is adamant about this, as well as all brokerages that I've ever worked for. The transaction is between the buyer and the seller, not about the agents. Okay. And
the subtle use of pronouns, I find, like when an agent is being frustrating or, not really working with me during a negotiation, using, instead of saying, what would you like, or what would the seller, not reminding them, but saying, what would the seller like? What is the seller's response to this? Reminding them this isn't their choice. This isn't their decision. It's their seller's decision. And while they think they might know what the seller wants, ultimately it's not up to them.
How many times, I agree, Sam, how many times you say, well, the seller's going to say this? I says, well, when you talk to them, let us know what they say. Thank you so much. Okay. So to give you an example prior to the shift, which we're starting to get into now, the closing costs. And I believe Kim and the social team, you had just talked about this. When now in our contract, since we revised the purchase agreement, there is on page 1 down at the bottom, right above financing, underneath the mortgage amount, the remaining amount that you're mortgaging is a space to say seller to pay X of closing costs. Okay. And let's say it's $4,000 on average. In general, it's $4,000. If you're not buying down a point, any lender will tell you that. So the seller says no. All right. So I'm the buying agent. Okay. My buyer needs $4,000 closing costs. Okay. That's coming from the lender. That's not coming from the buyer. Remind the listing agent that. They say, oh, do they really need it? If I had a penny for every time I heard that. You know,
most buyers don't want to.
Sean Hadley at Cross Country Mortgage says they do need it. Okay. So it's in the contract. So then the listing agent may say, no, we're not going to pay that. Okay. We're going to counter at this and we're not going to pay that. Great. So I would go back to my buyer and say, well, what if we jack the price of the house up $4,000? If obviously they qualified for that. If it's a $100,000 house and, you know, they need 4,000 and we're going to go up to 104, you know, and meanwhile, you've had those discussions with Sean prior, because negotiating, it's either, there's three things, just like this screen says, they're either going to accept it, they're going to reject it, or they're going to counter. So as a buying agent, I would say to my buyers, let's use the $100,000 house and they offered 80. Okay. Making this up. They're either going to take your offer, very unlikely, but they may. Number two, they're going to accept it and sign off, or three, they're going to counter. And my guess in this price point, they may counter based on the sale price to close price ratio, 95,000. Okay. If they counter at 95, what would your response be? I don't want you to give me an answer right now, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, but I want you to start setting up scenarios in your head, because tomorrow when I get this counter, you can't say that didn't tell you. Or maybe they want to split the difference. Don't ever fall for that line. Every time someone says split the difference, they will always split the final difference. Okay. So they say, I'm going to counter at 90. Let's just split the difference. The other party 100% will go to the 85. I can bet you 9 times out of 10. So I don't believe that when it's, I want to split the difference, because the other party, if you have a seasoned agent who knows how to negotiate, they will always, and your job as the buyer's agent is to get the lowest house possible, right? And as the listing agent, your job is to put the most money and get the highest price back in your seller's pocket. So the days where no closing costs existed in the past 2 years, we negotiated that. Or we could split the closing costs. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, could you pay $2,000 and my buyer will jack the price of the house up $2,000 more? Or guess what? They found $2,000. Could you just cover the two? Okay. And as a listing agent, I would say no to that. Do they really need it? Or I'm going to counter back, because I want to see what the other party's going to say. If they can pull and I can get $2,000 more back in my seller's pocket, then 100% I'm going to do it. But again, your conversation has to exist, if you're the buying agent, with the lender prior to writing the offer. You know, if by chance the seller comes back to 104, you know, we need this 4,000, could we do that? But you can split it. I want to pay 1,000. I want to, you know, I don't want to pay it. But if you're setting that expectation up as the buying agent and you wrote the offer, there'll be none of this, like, I can't believe they said that. Half the time they say, Colleen, how'd you know they were going to say that? Okay, because you set up scenarios. I want you to go to sleep tonight and I want you to think, if they counter at 95, where do you guys want to go after that? If they counter at 90, where do you want to go after that? What if they say no to your closing costs? Can you guys come up with 4,000 somewhere? You know, like, you got to set those examples and those scenarios up so that they know. Okay.
If it's said before, it's an expectation. If it's said after, it's an excuse. And that's something that Andrew Ginter said a couple weeks ago, and that's really rung true, and something that I've often thought about ever since I became a real estate agent, of just the more you can say up front, the more you can prepare your clients for, this isn't a likely scenario, but it might happen, the better it is when something like that does happen. Then they're at least prepared and it's not the first time they're hearing it. So after the shift or during the shift, you know, negotiating kind of, I don't want to say went by the wayside, but there was a lot less of it. It was a lot more of, what do the sellers want? And it was negotiating with ourselves of, can we get what they want? Because if we can't, it sounds like someone might be able to. Where you can still, obviously a negotiation comes in is for, you know, if a seller needs to be in there longer. Well, seller needs to be in the house longer, but they need to sell because they need the money to buy. You know, we have, why am I blanking on it? Rent back. There's a lot of creative ways for rent back. If timing's an issue, if financing is an issue, talk to the loan officer, see, you know, what can we do to maybe make it so my sellers can bring more to the table, or my buyers can bring more to the table to encourage the seller to, you know, work with us. on our offer. I had one other thing and I forgot what I was going to say, but that's okay.
Are you finding, you should be able to be finding today's offers in some municipalities where you're actually negotiating. I'm seeing it on my hot sheet every night. I read my hot sheet every night before I go to bed, all the new listings, all the price reductions, all the solds, all the expireds. If your people aren't set up on a portal yet, but you just still have to keep abreast, and the areas in which you are keeping an eye on. I keep an eye on many counties in a lot of areas, but when I'm reading that, I'm seeing the sale price to list price, they're actually selling lower, which is great. Now, mind you, there's some that are still in multiple offers, but it is starting to balance out. I'm not sure if you guys are experiencing that, but that means that negotiations are back into play and they're going on.
And you're, like I said, you are still always negotiating. It's what can I do to get the bet? What can I do? Because as the buyer, I'm trying to get my client that house for the lowest price. And obviously as the seller, they're trying to get it for the highest price. So I always tell my clients, what are things that we can do that can entice the offer without necessarily increasing the purchase price? And those are those little terms. Especially in a multiple offer situation, a lot of times, especially if it's a first time home buyer, they think that, okay, we just need to go in high. That's how we negotiate. We just throw a bunch of money at them. A lot of times those other terms can be just as important, if not more important, than the list price of a home. So finding out from the agent, which will go into, what are those terms that we then can negotiate when it seems like there isn't much room for, there isn't much room in terms of price. Well, we still want a win-win for both deals. So where can we feel like everyone's getting what they need to make this successful?
And if you guys get stuck on what to do, because, our clients look to us for solutions, like they have to be in this house at X and the seller can't move out till then. Call one of us, call a seasoned agent. There are ways to figure things out and make things work if you haven't experienced a challenging solution, but they're going to look to you for solutions. So you might not have the answer and you say, I don't have the answer, but I'm certainly going to go back and find it for you. Because we want to make sure you get the house. I had a tough deal in Cleveland Heights and went back and forth and back and forth. We finally found out that someone could move in with someone else just for the interim time period because it was a big move. And it all worked out. But it was because the agent and I kept talking and literally saying to each other, hey, Sam, if Sam was the agent, how can we make this work?
Mm-hmm.
Your buyers are awesome. My sellers can't wait to, let them have the house. But we're kind of stuck in this little scenario. So please feel free to reach out to any of us, any agent in the office, if you can't find a solution for whatever challenging thing that comes up.
Yeah, I can't tell you the amount of times I'll call up Colleen or call up someone and just say like, hey, I just need to run something by you. What would you think of doing? And what would you do in this situation? And that is 9 times out of 10, just because I can't think of it doesn't mean someone else hasn't. And a lot of times someone else has already dealt with it. And they're like, oh, this was successful, or I did it this way and it turned out poorly. Do it the other way. Or
you overthink things. We're realtors. We overthink everything. Just be like, I need to, sometimes I get a call like, Colleen, I think this is the right answer. I just want to talk it through, and you're on the right path. So no one has the answers for everything, but we certainly can help each other work things through and get what's best for our clients. This just reminds us, obviously we're negotiating with our clients and the agent on the other side of the transaction. This is our career, guys. If you do this full-time or part-time, if you do this full-time, you will continue to conduct business in the market. You're going to encounter the same agents on the other side of the transaction many times. So do you know who you're working with? I literally had an agent, and I'm saying this only because I've been doing this longer. In Highland Heights on Coldstream, we won out because the agent wanted to work with me and not the other 3. And it was not the highest offer. Not saying that to toot my own horn. It's because I had experience with this agent and she said, call, it's just super easy with you and we just get it seamless. I took it as the nicest compliment and my buyers got a great deal on the house. But the point being that you're going to run into these agents again. We're going to have a lot of fallout.
For better or for worse, you're going to see them again.
Right. And the agent, Sam will say, what do you think of this agent? Or how do they negotiate? But be professional, be kind, and build that reputation out there that people want to do business with you. Keep the end goal in mind. It is about our clients and they want repeat business and they want to think of you when they say real estate, anyone in their life, family, friends, colleagues, real estate, boom, your name should come to mind. And you want to make sure that they call you and that everyone wants to work with you on the other end.
Next slide. Okay, so the most common places that we're negotiating are pretty obvious: the price and the terms. Pricing is is a pretty easy one to wrap our head around. It's the price of the home. I always tell my clients, unfortunately, buying real estate is not like buying an apple at Heinen's. At Heinen's, you walk in, it's $1, you have $1, you exchange. In real estate, there's a price, and then we negotiate it, and we can go higher, we can go lower. The other thing with that is, as we talked earlier, emotions can become involved. So that's where the negotiation can be a little dicey sometimes. The terms, and as I said a few minutes ago, terms are just as important, if not sometimes more important than the price. A seller might see a house, or the seller's selling their house for $500,000 and they need to be there for 2 months. And you come in and you give them $550,000, but they need to be out in 2 weeks. It doesn't matter, in that situation, I would tell my sellers, figure something out for $50,000. But that's where the terms can outweigh, they need to be in longer. It doesn't matter how much money you throw in at us. Can anyone think of any other additional terms that we might negotiate besides, financial or time-based terms? Whether in the chat or just shout out, whatever works best.
I have one. When tenants need to, the deal's hinged on whether the tenants are going to be moving out or not.
Yeah, that's a huge one, and that's that's one of those very frustrating parts. I will say this: that I love my job, but I hate that there are so many things that are just point blank out of my control. And getting tenants out, you can huff and puff and you can do as much as you can, but at the end of the day, there's not too much you can do if they're sitting in there. And actually, there's a house right now that my client wants to buy, but we are waiting for the tenants to get out. So yeah, negotiating those terms, or maybe finding a creative solution for, all right, if they're not getting out, what can we do? How can we, get them out so my people can get in?
And I think that goes back to then call the listing agent before I even show it and say, I see that there's tenants in this house. When is the lease up? Or is it a month to month, so on and so forth. So that you have it and you can call your buyer and say, listen, this lease is not up till April. And if you guys need to be in February, we're not going to go see this house. This isn't going to work out.
Yep.
Okay. So do your homework before you even go show the house.
Honestly, I find sometimes if I have a client that sends me a house, the first thing I do is I look in the broker's remarks before I look at anything. I just need to know right off the bat, is there anything that's going to prevent us from liking the house right away? Because especially, I haven't seen this as much, but 2 summers ago, I felt like every single house was need an end of July, need an end of 2 months. And there were clients that I had them like, nope, we just can't go see it. You can't make this time frame work. Or
you can have discussions with it. Has the tenant talk to the landlord about breaking their lease, and what does that monetary figure look like? And if it's $2,000, if I brought your seller $2 more thousand in the offer, would he be open to breaking this lease so my buyers could get the house? Okay. And as a listing agent, guys, make sure if you take a listing and there's a tenant in there, that in the broker's remarks, common courtesy for all of us that show houses and all of you guys, that you're putting in there that the lease is up on a certain date. Okay, so that you're going to avoid a lot of calls and texts and emails if you just are super open in disclosing that.
So some other things that, Paul, please.
As I say, another thing that sometimes is up for negotiation, these last 2 years, we saw a lot of people waiving inspections in order to win a contract for their buyer. But related to, but separate from that, is properties that are in a municipality where we know there is a point of sale required. And similar thing to what you were saying, you look at broker's remarks, you look at the supplements to see if there is mention of the POS. The listing agent has not mentioned anything about the POS. You have to call that listing agent and say, what is going on? Talk about that, please.
So I just had one the other day. The listing agent didn't know there was a point of sale in Cleveland Heights.
Wait, was I told you?
No,
I had that happen too this week.
So I educated her that Cleveland Heights requires a point of sale and that you need to get it, please. And we're going to put POS compliant. And I mean, I did have the buyer, so we kind of took advantage of the seller, but they had no idea and they agreed to sign a contract point of sale compliant. Luckily, it came back fine. There was minor things, but I mean, that you choose your listing agent, you choose everything that goes with him or her. So I normally, Paul, ask before I would go write an offer that I want the supplements. What is the update on the point of sale? And I need you to send over The property disclosures, lead-based paint, decks and bylaws, if you're in a PUD or an HOA, and get them over to me. And to be honest, Paul, sometimes the agents assume they're online. I had one the other day say, oh, my assistant didn't put it on. I said, I'm looking right at the screen. They're not even on. She goes, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm embarrassed. I'll email them to you right. And literally an hour later, I saw them online. So I just call and pick up the phone. And because my buyers want to know, when I show houses, I print out when I have a buyer, the buyer full page. And at the bottom of every page, I write everything on the property disclosures. How many times you're in a house and you see a leak in the living room corner and it'll say, oh, we have a backup in the roof. We're going to address that. And then, okay, then the buyers know what's wrong with, and you're not like stewing over some leak in the living. We're not going to buy that house because it has a leak. They just closed it. They're going to fix it. I'm very specific when I show a house. I have all the information on my form with me so that you can address the basement, obviously the biggest point of contention of most homes. If there's any, as you show more houses and go on more inspections, you will learn more about inside waterproofing, like the B-Dry, things like that. You want to make sure that there's a transferable warranty. If Ohio State Waterproofing did it, it's a lifetime warranty that will transfer from owner to owner. Your buyers,
as long as they keep paying.
Yeah, as long as they keep paying. And you want to make sure that your buyers know that. Paul, did that answer your question?
Yeah, so to speak. I think in terms of negotiations, another scenario would be, what if, because we see this a bit, the POS is there, it's been done, and the broker remark says seller prefers the buyer to assume by POS violations. Talk about negotiating that scenario for our client.
So we get the point of sale and it's Mayfield Heights and it requires $2,000 to be put in escrow for your buyer. Let's say we represent the buyer. And it's selling as is, because I would guess if the seller wants the buyer to assume it, it's either selling as is or it's the middle of winter and they can't replace the concrete block outside, stuff that you can't do in the winter because of the snow. I would negotiate that with the price. So my buyer is offering, let's say your list price is $155. My buyer is offering $150 and we will assume all the rest of the violations. Now that money obviously has to go in escrow with the city, and you have to remind your buyers that it's 1.5 times. So they're just not going to put the 2,000. It's going to be 3,000. It's going to be 1.5 times for any of the extras that come about, like anything else, we start a project and it can escalate into more. That's required. And then it will go back to them. They have to fix it within a certain time frame. Every municipality is different. If by chance you go past the time frame, but you're showing the building inspector that you are doing those things, most building inspectors will be fine with giving you an extension, but then they have to have that reinspection, sign off, and they get their money back. I would take that though, Paul, into account with the price. And I would position myself when I send over the offer to talk to the listing agent about why we're doing what we're doing.
And calling the listing agent and saying, okay, so we are offering you a price of this much because we are going to accept the point of sale. It amazes me how often people won't do that, because as a listing agent, if you get an offer for less without that explanation, being able to tell your seller, hey, they're offering us less because we are also getting something. They're already negotiating with us. They're kind of giving us kind of a scot-free to not do the point of sale. So that's the price we're paying, is less $5,000. That can make your sellers really much more open to something like that than closed off.
And as a listing agent, Paul, you got to set that scenario up for your sellers. Like Sam's saying, you guys are not going to get full price if you're asking the buyer to assume. I'm just going to tell you that right now. It just doesn't happen. And to take your buyer point, Paul, a step further, to say, well, if they're not going to fix the point of sale, what's going to happen after, assuming you wrote in general home inspection, what's going to happen after the inspection? Are they not fixing any repairs? Because then I'm not a licensed home inspector, but based on my viewing of the home, I see that there might be some roofing issues or there's water in the corner. Are they not going to fix that? And if not, then that's my buyer's decision whether they want to move forward with that. I would turn that POS right into an inspection, a general home inspection.
As a side note too, if you're the listing agent and you are going to have the seller or the buyer assume the point of sale, have the point of sale done when you list the house.
100%.
That is my biggest, sorry for a little tangent, my biggest pet peeve is when it's one thing for a buyer to assume the point of sale, but it's another to assume something that they don't even know what they're assuming. So if you're going to have the buyer assume the point of sale, make sure you have that point of sale done. And so you can say, this is what you're going to need to do. Otherwise, it could be anything. We really don't know. Two other really common things that two other terms that we negotiate is appraisal, and then also the like we talked about rent back, but appraisal is a big one, and
Earnest money.
Earnest money. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appraisal, a lot of times I am not a fan of the gap addendum because I don't like giving up that negotiating power before we've even entered into a contract. But it was very in vogue for the past 2 years. I don't see it as much now, but that is a huge negotiating part of the deal. I've had, knock on wood, I've never had a deal fall apart because of an appraisal, but I have had appraisals I've had $60,000 appraisal gaps. So
appraisals can be tough.
They can be really, really tough. And when you get one that says $60,000, I'll never forget it. I practically just broke down into tears and was like, how do we even come to terms with that with $60,000? So, but you do.
You did it.
Yeah, you did it, and you go back and forth, and that's where your negotiating skills really come into play. And honestly, I think probably the number one negotiating skill is just keeping calm and remembering that everyone is on the same team. We're all trying to get to that same end goal.
And guys, with regards to earnest money, it's customary to write 1%. If your sellers want more earnest money, it's your listing and it's a $350,000 listing and they want $5,000 and your buyers are the buyers are putting down 20%, there's nothing wrong with going back and saying, my sellers would like some more earnest money. And they want $5,000. Your buyers are putting 20% down, that's $70,000. They're just putting a little bit more down earlier. That's all. There's nothing wrong with that. And same thing if you're the recipient, if you have the buyer and the seller says we would like more earnest money, you have to have that discussion when you're writing the offer. It's customary to write 1%, but hey, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, the seller may come back and ask for more earnest money. We have a couple of questions here to go. Becky asked about leaving appliances. That's in the purchase agreement with regards to all the kitchen appliances, and then anything to do with above ground pool and all the equipment I put on also included. I'll put number 1, Mayfield Heights POS compliant, or seller to have Mayfield Heights POS compliant. Number 2, all in-ground pool equipment, including heat pump, et cetera, et cetera. Second garage refrigerator, so on and so forth. You can't put chattels in the purchase agreement. That's separate. But you can write in all the built-ins. And
those can all be an extra term that is negotiated.
What other terms could be? That comment was an answer to it. Oh, I got it. Sorry. Thank you, Becky. I understand. Sorry.
And then, so you might be asking, how do we, and sorry, Alexis, question of point of sale. Why don't we address that? Why don't you email us about the point of sale, how you can handle a point of sale with a bank owned. I don't want to get too far down a rabbit hole specifically on point of sale right now.
Just know it has to get done.
Yeah, it has to get done no matter what. Someone's going to have to either needs to be done when it transfers, or someone's going to have to pay for it and then do it after it transfers.
Just real short, Alyssa, normally the banks will, there's an asset manager, there's a middleman when you're doing a bank owned, and they know they have to order it. Or if the buyer, some of them may state early on that the buyer has to pay for it. And you got to get it done. So, all right. So
the last thing we'll say on this slide is you might be asking, how do we find out all these things for the seller or from the seller of, we don't want to just submit an offer and then have them come back and say, well, now we want this. Well, now we want that. So really easy answer, you call the agent, you call the other agent. And the first thing I do when I know that my clients love the house we're going to put an offer is I say, hey, this is Sam Cregar with Keller Williams. We just finished your listing on 123 Banana Street. We're very, very interested. We'll have an offer to you by the end of the day. Would love to know what is important to the seller besides price. I always say besides price because obviously I know price is an important factor. That's usually the first one, but I want to know everything else. A lot of times they're going to say, nope, there's nothing, or it's already in the broker's remarks. But knowing that, especially if you're in a multiple offer situation, I've had plenty of times the agent will say, you know, they would really like this. It's not important, but they would really like it. And knowing that I kind of have a little insider piece of information that had I not called, I wouldn't have known that. And hopefully there's at least 4 other agents that didn't call and they don't know that, is going to put my offer to the top right away.
All right, yeah, any, just real quick, just any ahas or any questions you guys want to talk about real quick before we go into the prepare the offer? Chris, that if the buyer's agent wanted, the question is, what are your thoughts with the buyer's agent adding a home warranty in the contract? Paid by the seller, but not discussing it prior or mentioning it to the listing agent. I mean, I don't know that. I mean, I do it. To be honest, I mean, I don't highlight every single item when I send an offer over. If I'm the buyer's agent and my buyer wants a home warranty, I'll check it off. And I'm assuming that the agent, but I'm assuming, which means makes an ass out of you and me. That it's the listing agent's job to go through. I'll highlight highlights, but I mean, I don't go through it line item by line item. That's not my job. That's the listing agent's job. If they have questions and they concern, but I do it all the time. If I on a home warranty.
And especially with the home warranty specifically, it's in the purchase agreement. It's also a separate addendum that you're sending over, like a separate form that you're sending over. So that's 2 places they're missing it.
And that's also another thing. If let's go into the prepare here, is if by chance you guys are writing an offer and the listing says yes to home warranty and it's not in the supplements, call the listing agent over and ask, where's the application? You need the amount and the home warranty company. Don't put TBD, to be determined. Then those are more initials and thereafter. You write a purchase agreement, you do all your preparing prior. Thanks. Anyone else with regards to, we're going to go into preparing now. All right. Preparation is the key to building confidence and ensuring a smooth negotiating process. We are going to talk about preparing right now. If you do have your guide out, it's 18.4, the page with this slide on it. You know, obviously we know negotiating is a skill that can be learned and can be perfected with experience. The best practice, they say, is to follow these 3 P's: prepare, present, and position. And we're going to talk about the prepare right now. Is key. The preparation is key. Like I said, to build that confidence and make sure that we get to the end and close the deal. All right. As a listing agent, when you get buyers' offers to come in, do not assume their contract is the same as ours. It is not. They will bury those closing costs in there. Lately, I've seen another contract, I don't know the company, where it was on page 1. They will bury it at the end on the last page where it says other accompanying addenda. Mm-hmm. They will also bury it in the closing costs where it says other, where the seller is going to pay. You guys have got to read your purchase agreements when you're the listing agent for your seller. Don't just look at the inclusions, which all the appliances, look at the price and look at the closing. There's much more to the offer. And the second part of the most about looking at other people's purchase agreements is the inspections. Mm-hmm. Post home inspection, ours reads 3 days after the final result of the last home inspection. Not every brokerage has that. It will say 3 days after each inspection. That means if radon's sitting in a house for 52 hours, you better respond for the general. And then you got 3 days to respond to the radon, or if your septic is, not done, but you got to be careful with that. So please make sure that you're reading post all of your inspections, what their purchase agreement says. Kathy, it was, the guide is the Ignite homework guide. Julia can send that out.
My number 2 biggest fear, frustration with negotiation is what you were just saying, is where
we're missing, they missed something.
Sorry, yes, where you get a different purchase agreement. I'm totally blank. That is like my biggest fear, is because you're going to miss something. And I think the first time I sold a house with you, I think I read over that purchase agreement 30 times because I was so scared there might be something in there that we might miss that we could negotiate.
And if you're a listing agent and you need one of us to just review it to make sure you have all the highlighted items, you know, again, you'll have our contact information at the end. Feel free to reach out. We'd be more than happy. We're very well versed on all the co-brokes. And then on your training videos, there is Cocktails and Contracts, which I hosted with Cindy Sobel, who was an agent that used to work here. We have to adjust it because we do have an updated purchase agreement, and that's in the works. But I do go page, it's just minor tweaks here and there, but I do go page by page on how to write a strong purchase agreement. So please feel free. It was during COVID that we recorded that. That will help you go line by line, and it also will force you as a listing agent to then know what to look for when you receive an offer.
All right, so when you're preparing, there's 7 steps to preparing. The first 3 are pretty self-explanatory. You want to know your goal, you want to know your client, and you want to think ahead. What we mean by that, obviously, number 1's easy. We want to know the goal. We want to know that what is my sellers or my buyers' top price or lowest price that they are willing to accept, and you know all of the terms. You know the top. Basically, you want to know their threshold for everything. So that's knowing your goal, knowing your client is, again, knowing what their threshold is, knowing what they're going to tolerate, knowing what that, you know, what's going to make it the best, decision for them. Also knowing when they work best, how they work best. You might have a client that wants you to sit down and go through everything with them. I've had clients that are like, no, just email me it over. I want to look at it in my own time. I'll get back to you. So knowing that and thinking ahead, having that, hey, they might respond with this. What are we going to do if they respond with A, B, and C? And
they'll go, yeah. The negotiations will go so much smoother if you set up scenarios for them, 100%. So at the end here is just the 4, 5, 6, and 7, you know, setting those expectations up front, just like Sam said, setting those scenarios up. You know, if it's I can't move until then. Well, we're going to talk to the listing agent. Just move forward and try to work it out and be positive. Your job, you are the expert pro in putting these deals together. Be informed with the other agents and make sure you guys have all your homework. Ask open-ended questions. You know, why is that important to you? If they do counter at 90, how would you feel? You know, open-ended, not closed, where it's just yes, no, or one-word answer. Okay. Dig, as they tell you here, to dig 2, 3 deep with the questions. Obey the laws. Again, go know your point of sale. The title company consistently sends out, and if you if you don't have it, our office or GM Title has it with regards to all the cities that have point of sales. Okay.
And just Google city point of sale.
Some, like Gates Mills, they don't have a point of sale, but they have a septic point of sale. Septic's a whole new ballgame, but you got to know what the municipalities. Pepper Pike doesn't have a point of sale, but Moreland Hills and Orange do. So you guys got to know where do your homework and get all your disclosures and home warranty and all that. Again, I go over all this in the cocktails and contracts, but you got to have all your homework before you write that offer. If you have holes in it, it's not going to work out. Okay.
Oh, this is in the participant. I think we wanted to skip this one. Sorry.
Yeah. I don't have this one. I messed up. Sorry.
Yeah,
we're back to open-ended. Sorry. Ask I can't even talk. Open-ended questions. You're inviting the other party to share information for you. So number 1, I get this question all the time. Colleen, I sent over the offer and they won't respond. Like dead silence. And I always say, you know, type in anytime you get an email, thank you, received, got it, whatever, a text, whether it be the lender, the title, you have a transaction coordinator, a fellow team member, a co-broke, whatever it is, just know that the other person got it. That's all. It's just common professional courtesy. Okay. So when it comes to this and you're not getting an answer, you say, could you just please confirm you received the offer? Oh, so sorry, Colleen. Yes, we have it. Great. When should I expect to hear back so that I can let my buyers know? Are you meeting with your sellers tonight? Are you meeting with them tomorrow morning? Oh, well, one's got to work. I can't get to them tomorrow morning. Great. Thanks so much. I'll let my buyer know. Do you think I'll hear before noon? You know, or do they have a chance to talk at lunch? So now you've already set up all the expectations. Hey guys, we're not going to hear back tonight. They can go to bed. Otherwise they go to bed all like, oh, we're going to hear. And then tomorrow by lunchtime, I'm going to follow up. And if you don't hear anything, then I say, I'm so sorry. I thought we were going to hear by noon today. When do you think we'll hear next? You know, they're super excited about your house, you know, and then I jack the excitement up again. So excited. And they really want to hear back from your sellers. Okay, set up the scenarios on when you should expect to hear back if you're not hearing anything, because the realtors will go radio silence on you. And then again, going back to those questions, when you do send over the offer about, you know, what additional information should I have? Why is it important that your seller close in 30 days? You know, my buyer needs 40. Can you tell me why they need to close in 30 days? And this is where, again, this is the negotiation. How do they feel about that? You know, if we brought them 35, could they live there 5 extra days? If I gave them 5-day possession, could they then be out? You know, because after a week, you should be asking for rent, in my opinion. Versus closed-end questions. You know, do you have to sell your home by a specific date? This is more on the flip side of a listing. What's the bottom line you will consider? You know, you got to go dig deep with the questions.
And asking why, you know, okay, so we need to sell it by this date. Why is that important to you?
Right.
Why, you know, why do we need, and it's not, I think a limiting belief I have is when I ask why, it's not to be an annoyance. It's that it's actually important that we know, you know, what is important about getting out at a certain time? What is important about getting into a new place at a certain time? Maybe
you're talking to expireds or for sale by owners. This morning on our script call, we talked about that. Have you had any offers for sale by owner? Why are you choosing to sell it by yourself? Do you not want to go with a realtor? You know, what is the bottom line you will consider? If I brought you a buyer, would you pay me 3%? The goal is to sell your house, isn't it? Now that's a closed end, but then you say yes. And you say, okay, great. Then can I come over tomorrow at 3? And take a look at your house? I want to preview it for the buyers. I'd like to preview it for my team. I'd like to preview it for my office. Who knows? You can stay in constant contact. What were the stats this morning? Only if 9 buyers, or excuse me, 9 listing agents or 9 agents reached out to a for sale by owner, only 2 of them will consistently follow up after 8 contacts. Those are astounding stats. After 1 or 2 denials, they'll just go on to something else. But if 2 stay in contact, and I think it's after 7 times when you reach out to someone, they finally remember your name. So it's astounding stats, but you've got to be consistent. And we talk about the lead gen that we're implementing as a team, so is the office from 9 to 11, that you got to stay in contact with them. And it may sound redundant and you may get hung up on the phone and, you know, but you're constantly going to be in their face. Mike said there was 137 expireds on New Year's. Are we going after them? Ask yourself that. All right. So then we go back to what if happens, anticipating the next steps, which is just sheer review, which we kind of jumped ahead of the game, but you're setting up those scenarios, whether they accept, reject, or counter, and give them specific examples. You guys, the list price is $250. We offer $225. Based on my experience, $10,000 is probably going to be a good counter based on how far apart we are. You know, if they counter at $240, where do you think you're going to go from there? And I don't want an answer, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, but I want you to set up these scenarios in your brain.
And I think that last piece is really important too, when you're setting up the example of saying, I don't want to talk about this now. I don't want to hear your answer. I want you to think about it and then get back to me, or not even get back to me. Just think about it. Just have that conversation in your head.
It's 7 o'clock at night and they got the counter and they don't like it. Okay. It's $250. We wrote $225 and they countered at $249. I always say, if they're going to counter 1,000, we might be here all day. Okay. Your guys aren't going to like this counter, but I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to go to sleep tonight and you're going to call me in the morning. You're not going to answer me tonight. I don't care if it's 7 o'clock and you're angry and they should have countered more. Oh, it's okay. It's a counter. There's ball players in the game. So let's play the game. Right. So they countered and it's okay. But tonight, whatever you got going on, even if you're just sitting home, you're not going to counter and answer me back. I'm going to talk to you in the morning. Okay, I want everyone to go to sleep. I can't even tell you how many times I wanted it all done and we're going to counter negotiate all night and everyone's getting all worked up and then I can't even sleep. I'm so stressed. And in the morning, everyone's like, cop 232, let's see where it goes. Awesome. But yesterday they weren't even going to move because they were so pissed off. Okay. So I just heavily encourage you to just let them go to sleep. Same if you have an incident with another realtor. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Which leads us into, we're skipping this one, is presenting. The huge part of presenting is strictly or is not strictly, but it's just your relationship with the other agent. So number one is calling the other agent. You have to call the other agent. In my opinion, it is unacceptable to not let an agent know you are submitting an offer.
Don't text them.
No, give them a call. If they don't answer, then shoot them a text, but always give the agent a call. Most of the time they answer. Pay attention to nonverbal cues like pauses, voice qualities. If the other agent's being, try to pick up what they're putting down. If they're being, not very receptive, notice that and then know to work with it. Keep quiet when you present the offer. That's something that Colleen has always talks about. Say what your offer and then just silence.
Silence.
Say what you want. Say you want that 4% commission or 7% commission, and then silence. Wait for them to say something. And
it's awkward. The silence becomes awkward, and when you're silent, you'll force the other party to talk.
And know in your head too, you are waiting for their response. You said something, now they respond. Listen carefully to what is important to the other party. I can't tell you how frustrating it is, but also how important it is when you're listing a house. If there is a non-negotiable, my sellers have to take their refrigerator for some reason, that is the most important thing, and you get an offer and that's not noted anywhere. So when someone says, pay attention, the sellers need this, make sure you put that in the offer, because that's going to make it very hard to present an offer and get that offer accepted if there's already minor things missing that we've already talked about. Number 5, which I think is my most important one, is stay calm and relax.
You're getting
but just in general, not taking it personally and remembering that at the end of the day, this is our job, but it's all going to work out. And focus on your customers' needs. At the end of the day, you need to put your client number one. Their needs are what's important. Your commission check's not important. Your needs aren't important for this particular piece. Your needs are important. But when you're negotiating to purchase a house, it's your clients your number one. And if they want to go a different pathway, you have to go down a different pathway. And then give your offer the best chance. I usually send a really, not really big, but I always send a email with my offer that explains and summarizes it pretty briefly. Almost bullet points, but just that way the listing agent can see. I always attach it as one PDF where everything is in one section. I don't know if they have dot loop. These are all little things that I do to give my offer the best chance. I want the agent to give them the least amount of reasons to be annoyed with me and give them the least amount of reasons to reject my offer.
All right, I'm a biology major, if some of you don't know that. We're going to do a little experiment, okay? They say that when you have a difficult conversation to have or a presentation to do, you should be standing to do it, not sitting, okay? Researchers showed that when we stand up from our computers or present, not today, Sam and I are sitting, so I'm kind of contradicting what I'm saying, but we have a lot of paper. Your blood lowers your blood pressure, your risk of heart disease decreases, and your lower back improves. Studies have showed that power posing can increase your testosterone levels. Ladies, we do have them in our ovaries and our adrenal glands. You become more of a risk taker, you become more confident, and you become better overall. You feel better, actually. If you are in a low power position, like right now, we're hunched over our desks, you have increased levels of cortisol, which is stress, and you experience high levels of anxiety. Okay. So when I have a difficult conversation or I'm presenting a big offer, I am always standing and on the phone. I want to call the agent on the phone. So I want everyone to stand up right now and grab your phones. Stand up, everybody. This is really good. We're gonna get you out of your seats. Okay. Now, when you're on the phone, you're talking like this, right? We're standing up. Jules, you're not standing up. All right. All right. Now, when you're on your phone walking, what does everyone do? Put your phone in front of you and look down at it. Right? Is not everyone hunched over like this? Right? 0 to 60 degrees. Not good for the spine. You need to be up on the phone. Got it? All right. That's my little biology lesson for you. You're going to feel better and your voice deflection is more confident when you're standing on the phone. So you got to present a difficult counter to your buyer. You got to present a bad ROC, something that the sellers didn't know. You got to fire someone. You got to, I don't know, let some bad news to someone. Do it standing up. You will feel more confident and overall it's healthier. Okay, side note with the biology thing. Thanks, Sam.
All right.
26.
Did I lose that page?
That's all right.
Okay.
There it is.
All right, thanks. Okay, so now that we've covered the first two P's, now we are going to the last one, which is position. So position is about moving both parties closer until you have an agreement. You guys are here, everyone's just moving to get to that center. When you're engaged in this third step, it can be the most difficult one. It's also really the crux of the negotiation. So acknowledge that there's common ground. When it seems that you guys are so far apart, when it seems that both parties are so far apart, you'll look for places where the buyer and seller are in agreement and highlight those. Remind your buyer when they're so frustrated that, well, they did give us this, and well, we are going to be working in that. We're working towards that goal. If you give up a little, maybe they will too. Use what and how questions. These specific types of questions will help you better understand the priorities on the other side of the table. So saying, asking what would happen if, or how would this affect you, or how would this change your mind about the negotiation? How would it change your mind about having inspections done if we cap the inspections at $5,000, meaning they can't ask for anything that's below $5,000? And understand that this is a process, that it's going to take, what's the longest time you've negotiated?
6 months.
6 months. I've never negotiated for 6 months, but I've had deals that, we're negotiating for multiple weeks, and you just consistently going back and forth. And then know when to walk away. At the end of the day, there are some deals that you're just going to have to walk away from, that you're not going to reach a middle ground or a win-win. But also know that just because you're walking away for now doesn't mean you're walking away entirely. I can think of at least one time where my buyers walked away from the house. A week later, hey Sam, I think it's still in the market, let's try again. And everyone's had a week to refresh. Quite frankly, the sellers have had another week of no offers, and they're getting a little more desperate, and we look a little better. So know when to walk away, and that can ultimately save the deal and then still get you the deal at the end.
Yeah, I was just going to ad lib that to repeat, Sam. If the house, you guys can't come to agreement on negotiations on terms and price, and the house sits there, and you get the call from the listing agent, hey, have your buyers found anything? And they haven't. And the seller, our sellers sometimes have to sit and feel it. The no showings, the no offers, their listing agent saying, hey, we got to reduce the price. It's price and presentation, the only two reasons why houses don't sell. Okay. It's got to look good, and it's got to be priced. We don't determine the price, nor do the sellers. The market determines the price. You always tell them that a licensed home appraiser is going to be in this house with me when I have a listing, and we are going to be walking through, and I'm going to have to pull comps from the MLS to support this price. So no, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, 170 cannot be your list price, because I cannot support nothing higher than 150 in a 3-bedroom, 2 full bath, blah, 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 in Lyndhurst. Okay. Because here are the facts. And I have to slide these facts over to the appraiser with all your improvements, if they've done any, and then give them that, and then they're going to go back. Otherwise, we're going to have an issue. So I know you would like 170, and so would I for you. But unfortunately, the market is bearing 150 for your house. So you got to make sure. And if they sit there, like Sam says, and you get that call, hey, you guys, the house is still on the market, you want to go back? And you're going to have some buyers that may want to offer lower. You're going to have some tough buyers that want to negotiate. And then the listing agent goes, really, Colleen, they came in lower. I'm like, hey, you guys, it's an offer on your table. Please present it to the sellers and let me know. I can't even tell you how many times I say, when the agent gives me their personal opinion, I said, your personal opinion is null and void. Please present it to your seller and let me know what they say.
All right. What everyone's here for. I thought we were going to switch up.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
We'll do it at the end. All right. What everyone's here for. Negotiating tips.
Perfect. All right. Just review and everything. There's 6 of them here. Be professional, guys. Pick up your phone when somebody calls you. If you don't feel comfortable not knowing who they are, return your calls. Okay. And if you are negotiating, one tip that I'm going to give you as a suggested thing to always remember, that if you have a conversation with a realtor on the phone, turn that conversation into an email. Okay. Hey, Sally, thanks so much for the counter 132, or Colleen, they're going to counter at 132. Okay, great, Sally. Thank you so much. I'm just confirming we talked about 132. If you guys ever get in a lawsuit, okay, and Andrew will attest to this, and you cannot, in a court of law, you can't bring up a conversation as proof, but you can bring up an email. Okay, so an attorney taught me a long time ago to actually, if you're ever on the phone with an attorney, you will get an email immediately following the summary of your conversation. Okay, get your backup and be kind and follow up with messages. And like I said earlier, if you haven't heard back from them, it's very simple to just say, could you please let me know when we expect to hear back? Are you talking to your sellers tonight or in the morning? Okay, and same with the buyers. You know, when are your buyers available? All right, remember your goal is a signed contract. Okay, that's what we're driving towards, and it's what both agents and their clients have in mind. So keep that in mind. Control what you say and how you say it involved in the transaction. Are you loud and embarrassing on the phone, or do you have highs and lows in your voice? Do you pause when you're speaking? Do you let them reflect on what you're saying? Okay, if you create anxiety in your client, which we talked about earlier, or other parties, you're just going to reduce your leverage. They get angry and they won't want to deal with you. Okay, they will play off your emotions. So just remember that.
Continually refer to your client's motivation when you're speaking to them, especially when times get tough. Remind them how much they love this house, that it's going to get them into Beechwood, where they've been dying to get to for the past 3 years, on the street that they've always wanted. It's not to say forget about all the crap that we're going through, but it's to help you remember there is an end goal, and the end goal is so close. Don't reveal too much. This is something that I definitely struggle with because I like to talk. Don't reveal too much when you're talking to the other agent. There are definitely times where I've tried to get more information from an agent and they shut it down really quickly. Just constantly remember, you are basically anything that you're revealed, or anything that you say or that you reveal to the other agent, technically it needs to go through your client first. And so if your client is not, if that's not something that your client has just expressly told you that you can say, then you really shouldn't say that. And that's perfectly acceptable to tell an agent, you know, I'm not at the liberty to say right now, but let me give you a call back. And then finally, don't be attached to the outcome. This is so hard, especially in the very beginning of your career, when you just want a sale. You're just trying to get there. Sometimes the sale isn't going to happen. Sometimes we can't get to that end goal. I promise you, something better will happen. I'm a huge believer in things do happen for a reason, and real estate has only reinforced that. If we don't get the house, I promise you there's a reason, and there will be a better one that comes along. So don't be too attached to the outcome, which is a hard balance because we want to be fighting for that outcome, but we need to know when it's time to call a spade and just move on.
I always say it just wasn't the house for you guys. That's okay, guys. We're going to go back out shopping. You know? It's, you know, I love this, Becca. I had a client who told me I spoke calmly, that they didn't even mind the bad news so much. Definitely tone and delivery, 100%. Okay. Just be kind, and it's okay. It's all right. It wasn't, oh, Kyle, are you sure? Like, you're really calm about this. I'm like, it's all right. We're going to go find you another house. There's going to be something better. And how many times the next house is a lot better. Okay. So it's going to work out. All right, just in closing, each day, they just want to remind you in Ignite to think how you think, feel, act, and implement what you've learned. I think we've done a lot in this hour and 20 minutes of thinking, feeling, and acting, and implementing, because there's a lot of highs and lows in real estate. But obviously you want to move towards the big life and your big goals. So we suggest just taking a minute or two just to write down 1 or 2 things, to reflect on what you've learned today, or maybe it's a helpful hint, and to build that confidence and celebrate your growth as you continue to move into 23. Negotiation is tough. I will tell you, this is not easy. I still struggle with it today after 18 years, even with my children.
When you have another agent on the other side who's being very, demanding and can intimidate you. It's very tough.
But just kill them with kindness. Oh, that's all. Remember the 3 Ps we discussed today to help provide a framework when you're negotiating. I cannot stress enough how much you must prepare in advance before writing that offer. Okay. Any ahas that anyone wants to share, or tips? Julia, put our contact information in the chat box.
Colleen, I want to share one. The big question I had, I always remind myself, especially when it's negotiation, I am obligated to do what my client instructs me to do. But the flip side is, how do I help my client, whether he's the seller, my client is the buyer or the seller, how do I help them have realistic expectations as we go in? And where you answered that in your presentation today is in the 3 Ps with prepare. And particularly there, taking my client through all of the potential scenarios that may come up, I think is a good practice where we will help our client have realistic expectations and we'll be better prepared to negotiate the best deal.
And reminding them too of like, hey, this isn't a likely scenario, but it is a scenario, can really get people in the right direction that you need them to.
Yeah, thank you, Paul, for sharing. I have to agree that they're going to ask you your opinion on a lot of things. Like, what should we offer, God? What should we offer, Colleen? You know, and again, your best educated guess is that you're setting those, the facts from your experience, the market data, and your conversations with the listing agent. Based on my conversation with the listing agent, based on what's selling, how long the house has been on the market, and the condition, because you've been there 2, 3 times, whatever. After 3 times, they want you to write an offer. I think you guys, we should offer in this range. Don't say a price, because they're going to say, you said, okay, offer a range. It's just like when I go on a listing appointment. I don't tell them the price. This is the range. And when you sign this paper with me, I will tell you where, because they could sign in a month. Well, the market is changing every day. There's new listings coming on, things going contingent. And of course, most importantly, what is closing?
It might go up too.
Correct. So you never know, but don't give away free information. Give them a range. What do you feel comfortable with? Because if the list price, again, going back to what Paul just said, if you give them a scenario, if they counter at this, or say, hey, we're not going over 240. What's my ceiling? Well, great. Then we're going to work our way backwards because we want to negotiate a little bit, especially if the house has been on the market for a little bit. If you guys said your ceiling's 240, first of all, everybody gets off their ceiling. Let me tell you a little secret, but start backwards. Because as a buyer's agent, my job is to get you the lowest house.
I'm sorry. I say, what's the number that you can go to bed at night knowing that you're okay because we didn't get the house, you didn't want to pay over X. What that number is, we're going to start lower and then we'll go from there.
And one little hint here, I'm going to tell you, if you're $5,000 apart, okay, in a deal, if you're the listing agent, that's $5,000 out of your seller's pocket. If you're the buyer's agent, okay, right now with the interest rates, it's $6 for every 1,000. Okay, so follow my math with me. It's $6 for every 1,000. So if you're $5,000 apart, how much is that per month? 30, correct? Get it? 5 times 6. So it's $30 a month. You're going to lose this house over. You know what I tell them? It's 6 less Starbucks coffees. And they all giggle and they say, just take the offer. All right. Use that. If it's 2,000 apart and everyone's holding their ground, it's just $6 for every 1,000 in a 30-year mortgage or 1 meal out. There you go. Love it. But break it down so that you come from a value proposition that you're the smart one. And ARM is probably even better, but on a 30-year fix, right now, the average interest, it's $6 for every 1,000. Don't lose a house over $2,000. I tell my buyer, it's $12 a month, guys. Come on, that's nothing. You're spending more on your Netflix account, right? So break it down for them. But on the listing side, and I always say as a buyer's agent, I say, listen, guys, for the sellers, it's $5,000. For you guys, it's $30 a month. So, you can see their point of view. You got to set up both scenarios because you are going to be the seller on the flip side of the coin 7 to 9 years from now. And I don't want you saying, well, Kyle, you said this. They're never going to remember that. But the average homeowner does live in their home 7 to 9 years. So hopefully this was helpful. If anyone wants to unmute and give any ahas, we have a couple more minutes. Did take an hour. We talk a lot, Sam and I. Anyone? Was this helpful?
Thank you guys so much. This was
thank you. We really enjoyed it.
Thanks.
Thank you.